increased from 10 to 11 seconds. And the developers say early player
Alright,
sentiment predicted Zarya as one of the weakest solo tanks in 5v5. Through her
yeah.
high damage
Sorry,
potential
that
and
in the
barrier
background is
uptime.
Overwatch 2 stuff. I do have some fries in the air fryer, so that's pretty fun. We're gonna watch. So I just finished the prologue to Warcraft 3 campaign. It's Reforged. I've never played Reforged. Huge fan of the original. Back in the day, around when I graduated high school, maybe a couple years before and then after, and then I never really played it when I went to college. Maybe every now and then, but so I wanted to see how it was, and I'm liking it, but there are definitely things I don't like about it. Anyway, let's get this set up. Put on some background music while I'm doing this. Probably would have been a good thing. Okay, let's go with sure. All right. Yeah, I tried to refresh chat. Did it not do that? Yes, it didn't. Or just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Why did that not work? Just the two of us. Maybe that worked. That may have worked. Building castles in the sky. Just the two of us. Title Spooky React. Oh, that sucks that my internet decided to fuck up. But it's working now, so I restarted the router and everything. That's okay though. Here, I'm gonna finish this video. It's probably interesting to you as well. These are the new nerfs that definitely are coming. I'll rewind it a little bit. Sombra hack. Sombra is still getting nerfed. Just she didn't in the latest patch, but I believe these are coming before the end of season 1, or at the very latest, the beginning of season 2. So let's see what we got here. These are scary if they're your mains. Nobody like to see their main nerfed. Was a very hard hit on Brigitte. Brigitte, to be fair, she used to be the most powerful character in the game. She would delete Tracer. Like, Brigitte would just delete Tracer. That's all she did. Or any backline character with like 200 health. They needed to nerf her for sure. But man, they kicked her into the ground so far. Now she's in a pretty good place though.
Okay, let's move on to Genji. Now, Genji. So, I think this nerf destroys Genji, I think. Anyway, let's just read through this, and then we'll give you, I'll give a bit of, like, my thoughts on this.
So this is still going through. It just didn't go through in the Halloween patch, but we have seen this.
So, maximum ammo reduced from 30 to 24. That's quite a lot.
I'll be right back.
Shuriken damage reduced from 29 to 27, and the dev comments are, Genji is a hero that has greatly benefited from the move to 5v5. Changing to a single tank and the reduction of crowd control has meant Genji has had less obstacles in his way. However, he hasn't received tuning updates since he wasn't actively in the meta until launch, something also informed by our general preference to avoid preemptive adjustments when possible. We also saw that in early beta tests, other flanking heroes such as Tracer and Reaper were also significantly more effective in Overwatch 2. These changes will bring Genji more in line with the other flanking damage heroes. Now, you know what? The reason why I am sort of like it's a little bit strange, this one, is I think as time goes on, players deal with Genji better. And I've noticed that happening in my games. Sure, when the game first came out, there was just Genji was killing everyone. Nobody knew how to stop him. Nano Genji was just destroying everyone with Nano Blade. But then as time goes on, you know, these are just anecdotal examples. But if I'm playing tank and Genji whips out his Dragon Blade, and I don't know, let's say I'm Orisa, I just spear spin into him and push him away. If I'm playing Diva, I'll fly into him and push him away. You know, if I'm playing DPS and I see him do it, I try
Genji
and kill him.
is annoying,
and I hope the rest of my team help, because obviously you couldn't do it on
not
yourself.
nearly like
you know,
used to be.
a nano Genji is going to be pretty hard to stop for like in a 1v1 unless you're a tank. Like no one else is going to stop that. But I think like in time, players deal with this. My worry with this is I mean, they're literally gimping his damage here and saying that, oh, he's a flanker and he's really benefited from this. And they've also gave no mention of the fact that Genji benefited from the new DPS passive quite a lot.
Now I want to watch the Mercy.
I mean, I don't really.
Again. I love
Genji
that
even
song.
being played as a flanker. This is the thing. Genji is like in the enemy's face. He's diving on top of them. Yeah, okay, he's flanking a little bit, but it's not like Genji exists on the on the edge of the map and looks for a target to go in. Genji was just literally at the front, spamming his shurikens, trying to build his ult, then going in for a dragon blade or just going in for a normal blade. Maybe he'd isolate the odd target and go onto that. He's a dive hero.
I left my water.
I just think with Genji, even though I'm not a Genji player, I don't have much Genji play time really, all things considered. I just think that sometimes Overwatch is maybe a little. Now I know this. If you can take this a lot of ways, you can take this the way of like Genji. I think he's a really cool hero and a really fun hero, and when he's good, I think the game benefits from it because the game looks really awesome when Genji's being played, especially at the pro level. But just in general gameplay, he's really awesome. He's got a really cool kit. But I also know that it's quite frustrating if Genji is just killing you, or if you feel like you don't have any options, like, oh, he's pulled out a Dragon Blade, we just all die now because no one's going to deal with this. I don't know. I just feel that they should have had a bit more faith in the players with this change and just left it a little bit longer. I mean, really, you could have got rid of this Genji change and just nerfed Sojin instead, and then I'd be fine. So, I don't know about Genji. On one hand, I can understand. On the other hand, I don't know. I think it's a bit heavy-handed because I think this might really shut down Genji quite a lot. Because he's losing a lot of damage here. And next up is Zarya. Now, I've been playing loads of Zarya. I don't want that Zarya to be nerfed because it's funny just walking through the front line and lasering everyone down. But it had to happen. It's got to happen, and it is happening. And this is what they're doing. So barrier duration reduced from 2.5 to 2 seconds. That's a pretty big nerf. Your barriers are going to go down much quicker now. And barrier cooldown has been increased from 10 to 11 seconds. And the developers say early player sentiment predicting Zarya as one of the weakest solo tanks in 5v5 through her high damage potential and barrier uptime. Her high damage potential and barrier uptime have proven to be extremely effective. For opponents, feedback has indicated this can feel as though Zarya has a very limited windows of vulnerability, which feels difficult to deal with when combined with her rampaging damage potential.
Yep, I agree with
ramping,
that 100%.
sorry, but it is I've lost my mind. You can probably tell, guys, my voice is like going. I don't know what's going on with this.
Oh no, what did I do?
COVID crap that I've had, although I'm not positive anymore. I'm positive for like 4 days, but it has annihilated my voice. Holy hell. Anyway, these changes will reduce the barrier uptime, making it slightly more difficult for her to gain energy and provide enemies with more time to deal damage to her. So the thing with, like, I'll say this, the thing with Zarya is in Overwatch 1, you knew if she bubbled herself, that's it. The comms would be bubble gone, Zarya bubble down, bubble, she's bubbled, whatever, bubble gone, kill her, focus Zarya, because you knew you had a window of opportunity to kill her. In Overwatch 2, it's not that simple, because she bubbles herself, and then she might have another bubble. She might not have another bubble, she might use it on someone else, but it's much more difficult to keep track of these two bubbles. And because they're on their own separate cooldowns, when they're coming back online again, it's like, when did she use this bubble? Where's that bubble coming from? Has she got one in the bank? You don't really know. And it means that Zarya can very easily charge herself, because when she's in a fight, people want to kill you. They start shooting you, you just pop your bubble and get a load of charge. Now, this is a pretty decent nerf, taking it down to 2 seconds from 2.5. Will it make much of a difference? I think it probably will. You're going to notice that you're weaker. So I think a lot of Zarya players now just go and play Orisa. Orisa's so good. But yeah, this was needed. It was needed because Zarya, again, like if you look at the highest tiers of the game, Zarya is just in every game. And if one team has a Zarya and another team doesn't, it can be difficult unless you're on certain maps, maybe Gibraltar, for verticality, maybe with a Winston or a Diva instead. But you know, yeah, this is but I feel a bit sad. Next up is Diva, another hero which does need a nerf. Very strong. In fact, I must say as well, in the previous section here where it's like dev comment, early player sentiment predicting Zarya.
Okay.
Burn, like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Hopefully that'll work.
I love it.
I don't see why it
But
wouldn't.
I think we did. I mean, the community was like, well, we don't think Zarya is too strong. In fact, who was the meta hero? I think Winston was seen as the super meta hero back in the day. Back in the day, being like the closed alpha with like a shed ton of extremely good players like Al Pros and all of that stuff. So anyway, D.Va's nerfs, these are what they are. Fusion cannon spread increased from 3.5 to 3.75, so it's less focused damage. It's wider basically. Booster impact damage reduced from 25 to 15, and this is the real kicker because boosters did a ton of damage. 25 damage flying into someone, like flying at them, primary fire, micro missiles into them, hitting them, and then meleeing them. You don't even melee, you just carry on firing primary fire. That is a massive amount of damage.
Yep.
And you were like, she was like the ultimate assassin, D.Va was. Obviously, she's massive. You know she's coming to get you, but you can't escape. Especially if you're like a widow or something. She's just straight on top of you and kills you. So she did need looking at. Her damage was ridiculously high. And let's see what the devs say. D.Va ended up feeling too deadly after the last round of changes, given how resilient she can be with the improved defense matrix. Both our stats and high-level player feedback. It's interesting that they now and like high level. I mean, this must be from the Overwatch League guys because I know that they talk to the Overwatch League guys for feedback and stuff. But it's interesting that they've mentioned that. But also, like I said, at the highest end of the ladder. It's not like I'm at the highest end of the ladder, but if you watch any streamers playing at the highest end of the ladder, you'll see a ton of D.Va. She's super effective. And also, if you look at the top 500 tank list as well, you'll see a lot of D.Va.
I do want to stream some of those.
High level player feedback regarded her as not effective enough before that compared with other tanks. So this is a partial revert to establish some middle ground there. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Like D.Va's really strong at the moment. So will this be enough? I don't know. It's going to make her less of a assassin diving into you, but I think she's still going to be quite effective. But we'll see. It's kind of like a mini change, that is, I'd say. And finally, we've got Kiriko. So she gets a nerf here. Swift step invulnerability duration reduced from 0.5 to 0.25. Now, the dev comments here are, this invulnerability window is primarily intended to help avoid instantly dying to something unseen after teleporting through walls, but it ended up being a little too long and led to some confusion when shooting at Kiriko.
Okay, October 30th. There are some playoffs.
This is just going to punish you for crazier teleports, which, to be honest, a lot of the time, if you do a suicidal teleport, you probably will get killed. Although I think if you're teleporting in with your dive, so if you're following your dive tank, which is a pretty strong tactic with Kiriko, your Winston goes in and you teleport on top of him, now you're going to be less invulnerable. So in theory, if that happens to the enemy can just ignore the Winston and kill you faster. I mean, it's only, it's a couple of points of a second faster, but it's still faster. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's fine. We'll have to wait and see what Kiriko does at the pro level of the game. But I think Kiriko is really fun at the moment. I'm not sure. I don't think Kiriko is too OP. She's obviously very survivable. Her damage is very hard to be effective with. But one thing I will say about Kiriko's damage figures compared to like a Moira or any other support, generally with Kiriko, it's high value damage. It's damage that's landed on critical shots. I mean, if you land,
those crits
two shurikens, two kunai on like a tracer, she's dead. Yeah. Whereas Moira could hit the tracer in theory for more damage, but the tracer can jump around, get healing, rewind. There's lots of stuff that could happen. Whereas with Kiriko, it's more deadly damage. But the thing with Kiriko is it's much harder to land that damage. So I think it's actually kind of
okay. That's fine. Now we're gonna go watch. I think it's called The Lights of Appalachia. If you haven't, highly recommend Wendigoon. Go subscribe to him. It's a pretty big channel, 2 million subs. God, I fucking hate my my life and my YouTube and everything. Anyway, The Ghost Lights of Appalachia, or The Haunted Mystery of the Brown Mountain Lights. It's a pretty long one, but I've been wanting to watch it.
Hello everybody, today I'm talking to you from a place known as Wiseman's View, one of the most beautiful points in all of Appalachia. Just behind me you can see a landmark known as Table Rock, and the gorge that exists between this point and that one has one of the most intriguing mysteries in the natural world. This view is a testament to the Earth's majesty.
Damn, that's pretty.
The colors of these hills tell us that whenever God painted the world, his brush must have began in Appalachia. During the day, these hills are home to one of the planet's greatest beauties. But at night, it's home to one of Appalachia's greatest monsters. What you're seeing now is the unexplained Brown Mountain Lights. The Brown Mountain Lights.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up. It was at this.
Lights of North Carolina are described as a sort of shooting star or floating spirit. Stories of these ghost lights have haunted the region for years, and to this day, their reputation is one of wonder and terror.
Ooh, that's
the
weird.
Brown Mountain Lights of the Linville Gorge, that's part of the Pisgah National Forest, is a to this day unexplained phenomena. Scientists and locals have spent the past century trying to determine what these lights are. And perhaps just as terrifying as the existence of the lights themselves are the stories that accompany them. So today, we're going to talk about the stories, theories, legends, and monsters that inhabit these hills.
She was talking about ball lightning. I don't actually think that we've ever gotten ball lightning recorded, like visually, but it absolutely is a real thing, and it's very, very strange. Because its movement, it's literally what it sounds like, ball lightning, and it happens in I'm not going to say that. It's very rare anyway. And some people have like described it, you know, as this orb, like following like a pathway. Like it's not just random. It's very strange. People are like, yeah, it almost felt like it was sentient or something. It's weird.
And as
that's what I would have said about this, but that lady already said it, and I'm sure it's going to be debunked.
Some of the answers may be more terrifying than I care to admit. Something I want to mention before we begin is that this video would not have been possible without the help of some very kind people. A lot of the stories about the Brown Mountain Lights are regulated to local legend. So I have been driving around the area of the Linville Gorge for several days looking for people who had family or may know stories relating to the lights. During this time, I met a very kind author by the name of Tense Franklin Banks, who I'll talk about more at the end, who invited me into her home and allowed me to comb through her records that her and her mother had taken for decades, that had everything from rare photographs of the lights, to eyewitness accounts, to local folklore. She wrote a book regarding the area that will be linked in the description, and this video would not have been possible without her. Also, several of the photographs I'm going to use from this video will come from the Ark Adventures on YouTube, who has the best photos ever of the Brown Mountain Lights, and a man named Burgess Bell, whose favorite pastime is going up to Wiseman's View and taking pictures of the lights. While I was there getting footage for my video, I met him and he was very kind, taught me how to use my camera, and even offered me access to several of his pictures and videos.
That's cool.
And I greatly appreciate it, and he'll be linked in the description as well. Several of the stories you're about to hear have never existed in the public record.
That's really cool. So why didn't they try to go where those lights were? Because we have the Marfa lights here in Texas, but they're like up in the sky. You can't get there. I don't know. Anyway.
Until now. So hopefully you're at least half as excited to hear it as I am to tell it. So today, for the Halloween season, we are going to talk about one of nature's most haunting mysteries, the Brown Mountain Lights. And hopefully I don't fall off a cliff, although that would get a lot of views. And as an important announcement before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, I present you him. He is finally here. This empty vessel, Wendigoon U2's doll is available to purchase at the link in the description. U2's allowed me to design this pagan idol, vinyl figure. I gotta stop doing that. And I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Like, look how well they did on, like, the hair and the antlers. Isn't he just the cutest?
Oh.
They even let me design the box, which has an entrance to Hollow Earth and a spooky forest wrapped around it, along with several of my stupid quotes that I'm honestly surprised they let me get away with. And every time one of these little guys is sold, it supports me directly. So if you decide to pick one up, that really means the world, and I greatly appreciate it. And know that it will go directly towards funding more of these self-destructive ventures that I call YouTube videos.
Wow. It's like he understands how to market and promote himself instead of bitching about money all the time.
So again, live now at the link in the description at youtube.com. He'll be here for a very short time, and then he's gone forever. I should also mention that I am not responsible for any chanting or whispering that you hear while in his presence. But don't let that scare you off. Feel free to put him anywhere in the house, and there's never a reason to hide from him. He already knows your sins. Again, thank you all so much for supporting me. It really does mean the most. Hope you check him out. Link is in the description, and we are back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. Now, there's a lot to cover with the Brown Mountain Lights, so it's probably best that I start at the beginning. The first official mention of the lights specifically comes from a 1912 article in the Charlotte Observer. In that article, it says that the locals have begun to see strange lights appear within the Linville Gorge, which is, as mentioned, the gorge here. Now, this wasn't the first written mention of the lights. We'll get to that later. However, it was the first published mention. With this announcement, the lights became a local legend, and people from all over the country began to come to the Linville Gorge and here at Wiseman's View to view the lights for themselves. And if you've seen the lights directly, there's really no mistaking them. These giant floating orbs of what appears to be fire or lightning that hover in and above the tree line. It became a national spectacle, and so much of a spectacle, in fact, that the government got involved. In 1913, the United States Geological Survey, or the USGS, sent an agent named D.B. Sterrett to come investigate these claims of the Brown Mountain Lights. D.B. Sterrett walked to the top of Wiseman's View, took a quick look over the hillside, and determined that people were just looking at train lights. Legit, he gave the official report that these bunch of dumb yokels just saw a train and thought it was God or something. Which, a few notes on that. For one, people know what trains look like. Two, even though Sterrett argued that it could have been reflections from the train light around the hills, reflections don't look like that. And three, that's not a train light. So, as you can imagine, the locals were not convinced, especially when a large flood hit the area in 1916, and despite all of the railways and electricity being shut down for several weeks, the lights still appeared. Also during this time, a local hotel owner and his son, George and Joseph Lovin, began to gather accounts from visitors who would stay in the hotel who were coming up to Wiseman's View to see the lights. From several of these accounts of these burning balls of fire rising up above the tree line and then whispering across the canyon at impossible speeds, the lights graduated from a local oddity to a national legend. So in 1922, the USGS sent in another agent, this time a man by the name of George Mansfield, to stay in the region for 2 weeks, gather hard evidence, and dispel the rumors of these ghost lights for good. So Mansfield stayed at the Lovins Hotel for 2 weeks, and while he was there, used all manner of charts, maps, telescopes, in order to determine what these lights are. Now here's the problem with that. Anyone who's been in the region, locals especially, can tell you that the Brown Mountain Lights are not a for sure occurrence. Especially nowadays, when several of the areas around the mountains have hiking trails and ATV paths through them, it's hard to determine if a light you're seeing is a headlight or maybe the start of what will become a Brown Mountain Light. Tense Banks, the author I mentioned earlier, who wrote a book on the region and has lived here her entire life, has said she has only definitely seen the lights 5 times. And again, when you definitely see them, you definitely see them. But it's not an everyday occurrence.
I wonder if he's going to
So just because this guy from the USGS came down here to go fishing for 2 weeks doesn't mean he was going to catch anything. As a matter of fact, the Lovins family said they came up here with Mansfield whenever he did his surveys, and every night he was there, the lights didn't happen. So after 2 weeks, Mansfield published a 30-page paper detailing his analysis of these Brown Mountain
Lights. I wonder if it happens...
In his report, Mansfield would conclude...
It's gotta happen... Well, I guess it's not, like, periodically, like every 3 days or something. Okay.
About 47% of the lights that the writer was able to study instrumentally were due to automobile headlights, 33% to locomotive headlights, 10% to stationary lights, and 10% to brush fires. Which, once again, not a train. The leading theory of the time was that whenever the surrounding counties became electrified and towns like Spruce Pine and Morganton had a power grid for the first time, it caused a series of reflections and refractions across the mountainside that caused the illusion of the Brown Mountain Light.
Right, that's what happens in Marfa. I believe that's the overall agreed upon whatever theory is that it's lights reflecting off of something, and that's what people are seeing.
And to be fair to the USGS, official publications did coincide with the same time that electricity began to enter the area. The whole surrounding county was pretty much electrified by 1911, 1912, and the first official publication, as I mentioned, was 1913. Another thing that's also fair to mention to them is that in 1911, Jules Verne, the author who wrote Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Mysterious Island, and several other works, published a novel
10,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What?
And in the book Master of the World, a scientist who's in Table Rock, which is right there. And while inside of Table Rock, the scientist in the story created all these crazy contraptions like flying machines that caused these energy balls to float out of the rock and around the mountain itself. So it's really convenient that 2 years before people started talking about the Brown Mountain Lights, a famous author put out a book where giant floating lights float around the mountain. So the government looked down here at Appalachia and said, oh, all these people, they're getting tore up with, their electricity and trains and reading. And it was just
all of those really nice things.
Conjured up the lights. And that would be fine